desperation, Zelensky of Ukraine lashes out at Henry Kissinger, who is proposing a peace negotiation between Russia and Ukraine. Zelensky says Kissinger has a recipe for success for Putin. He wants us to make a deal with the devil. The prescription that the former foreign minister asked for, but is afraid to say out loud, is simple: appease the aggressor by sacrificing parts of Ukraine, said the advisor to the Ukrainian president. Kiev rejected comments made by former U.S. Secretary of State Henry Kissinger, who said the time was near for negotiating peace in Ukraine to reduce the risk of another devastating world war, but dreams of breaking up Russia could be unleashed nuclear chaos. Kissinger still has not understood anything, neither the nature of this war nor its impact on the world order, Mikhailo Podolyak, an advisor to Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, told Telegram. The prescription that the former foreign minister asked for, but is afraid to say out loud, is simple: appease the aggressor by sacrificing parts of Ukraine with guarantees of non-aggression against other Eastern European states, Podolyak stressed. That's the deal with the devil. And he says all proponents of simple solutions should remember the obvious. Any deal with the devil, a bad peace at the expense of Ukrainian territory, will be a victory for Putin and a recipe for success for authoritarian leaders around the world. The time has come to build on the strategic changes already achieved and incorporate them into a new framework for achieving negotiated peace, Kissinger wrote in The Spectator magazine in an article titled "How to Avoid Another World War." Kissinger is 99 years old today. He said he proposed a ceasefire in May under which Russia would retreat from front lines before February 24th invasion, but Crimea would be negotiable. The Kissinger intervention, the position that the time has come to resolve the crisis in Ukraine through negotiations, is formulated by the former U.S. Secretary of State Henry Kissinger, who argues that the Ukrainian war has entered a critical turning point that must be exploited so that the issue can be resolved through conversations. In his article in the magazine The Spectator, entitled "How to Avoid a New World War," the diplomat points out that now is the right opportunity to avoid escalation of military operations that could lead to global catastrophe. According to Kissinger, Russian forces should withdraw their troops to the Russian-Ukrainian borderline that was in place before February 24 invasion. But Kiev should forget about Donbass and Crimea. At this point, and given the issues that will exist in the territorial area, the American diplomat argues that if the negotiations don't work, referendums could be held in the hotly disputed areas in the presence of the international community. In any case, Kissinger emphasized that Russia should not be weakened because it is one of the leading powers of the world, while pointing out that any internal problems in Russia will be a major problem for the whole world. Diplomacy lost opportunity. Kissinger refers to the winter lull that will come on the battlefield in Ukraine, comparing it to the situation in August 1916, when the Europeans involved in the World War I tried to negotiate with the U.S. so that to mediate a peaceful settlement of the conflict. The American top diplomat argues that the then U.S. President Woodrow Wilson, due to the upcoming presidential election, missed the moment when diplomacy could have intervened in time to stop the bloodshed and save millions of lives. Kissinger wonders, is the world today at a similar turning point in Ukraine, when winter creates a forced pause in the conduct of large-scale military operations on its soil? Peace through negotiations. I have repeatedly stated that I support military operations by Allied forces aimed at countering Russian aggression in Ukraine, but the time is right to build on the strategic changes that have already been made, integrating them into a new structure in order to achieve peace through negotiations, Kissinger pointed out. Ukraine's neutrality makes no sense. As Kissinger mentions, for the first time in modern history, Ukraine has evolved into the most important state in Central Europe, with its resistance to Russian forces. The international community, including China, continued to prevent Russia from a possible use of nuclear weapons, says Kissinger, who, with this in mind, considers that the negotiations for the neutral status of Ukraine no longer make sense, and for this reason points out that the peace process should connect Ukraine with NATO in whatever form it is expressed. No to the weakening of Russia. However, he argues that the outcome for the conflict should not be aimed at weakening the Russian Federation, which is one of the leading powers of the world. Russia has been a key contributor to global balance and power balance for more than 500 years, Kissinger says. Its historic role should not be downplayed, and he points out that the possibility of internal issues in Russia, which has global nuclear potential, would be a big problem for the whole world. So what does he suggest? As for what should be done next, Kissinger restates the proposal he made last May, that is to draw a ceasefire line along the Ukrainian border as it was on February 24 before the Russian invasion. As he says, Russia should withdraw from the territories it seized during a special military operation in Ukraine, but not from the Donetsk People Republic, Lugansk People Republic, and Crimea. Negotiations for their fate could begin after a ceasefire is reached in the event that the border line between Ukraine and Russia that existed before February 24 cannot be reached either through negotiations or military means. Recourse to the principle of self-determination could be considered. They could, under the control of the international community, hold referendums on the self-determination of highly disputed territories that have changed hands many times over the centuries, Kissinger says. The target, the aim of the peace process would be twofold. On the one hand, to confirm the freedom of Ukraine, on the other hand, to define a new international security structure, especially in Central and Eastern Europe. In that case, Russia will have to find its place in the new world order. Kissinger points out, stressing that the path of diplomacy will be thorny and full of disappointments, and that it will require vision and courage. Efforts to achieve peace and order involve two elements that are sometimes seen as contradictory. It's a desire for security and the need for acts of reconciliation, Kissinger concludes. And this is from Banking News Greece. I've translated for you from a Greek article. Please leave your comments, and thank you for your support. Kindly support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support, and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box.